Yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is another video from Stepping Stones Professional Development. Today we have Janine Kelly, the creator of Stepping Stones. My name is Kristel, and Janine's just gonna give us a quick sneak peek on our upcoming webinar on active supervision.
That's right, Kristel. Thanks, Kristel. How you doing?
Fantastic. Just having a cup of coffee here.
I've got my water. I'm being good today, Kristel. I had too much coffee with you the other time we were on here. You got me going onto the coffee bandwagon again. So I had to slow it down. I get a bit worried with too much coffee going through me. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I am Janine. I am the creator of Stepping Stones. And Kristel and we touched on this webinar, Kristel, I think last year, didn't we, when we started to develop it?
Yes,
We were still both, you and I were still both actually working on our training and assessing accreditation.
Yes.
When we started to look at, we really wanted something that resonated with early childhood education. And it's one that we felt we could tap into internationally, because as I keep sharing in a lot of these videos, I am Canadian. I do live in Australia, but I did start my journey 28 years ago in Vancouver, Canada. So I want to give back so much to my roots, but I also really want to give back to the community of early childhood educators. So for me, that looked like what was a hot topic. And back then, and I think it still is today, as a manager, as an owner, it was a lot around supervision and the differences between active and non-active supervision. So that's when you and I came up with this little webinar, didn't we?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, we did.
We see a lot of comments and posts and conversations around supervision and how wouldn't it be really good if there is a webinar that would support educators in understanding what it is, what it means to do active supervision.
That's right.
Active supervision is something that I also talk about with my classes. I teach early childhood education. I teach Cert 3, and active supervision is one subject on its own. And it's a lot to talk about. It's not just about, how we some people would think it's just about, you just need to make sure that you know where the children are. But then you see educators just standing there and watching where children are. And active supervision is much more effective, is better to use as a strategy to stop or to manage challenging behavior.
Oh, 100%, Kristel, 100%. 100%. And I think that's why I'm going to share the one slide that we made together around here on the webinar. And it was active supervision. It was 6 strategies that you and I broke down. We broke it down to really 6 strategies in keeping children safe. So we talked a lot about these 6 strategies. And the first one, I'm going to move. Sorry, that's not very well set up. Sorry, I'm going to make you a little bit smaller there, Kristel. There we go. And the first one is something that you and I talked a lot about, and that's the arrangement of the environment. So we need to think about how we are arranging that environment. So do we have a lot of places where children could hide, where there could be things that could happen? So that's when we need to, that's the first step, right? It's that arrangement of the environment.
Because again, you're getting to use your environment as with our other webinar, using the environment as a third teacher. What do teachers do in the environment? They also supervise. So why not use the environment to our advantage, right?
100%. That's exactly it. Oh, I love it the way you said that. That was perfect. And then you just said it's that positioning of educators. So do you have in Australia, we quite often will have an active supervision policy and a plan. So they say you must stand here, here, and there. And I like that. Don't get me wrong, especially if it's a team that's struggling.
Mm.
But then I want to see people position themselves with the children. If you've got adult chairs in your environment, you will have adults sitting on them, most likely. And I know that's important too at times. But how much more important, Kristel, is it to actively supervise in sitting in the sand pit? I don't enjoy going it with all over my body when I get home too. It's between the toes, it's in the socks, it's in the shoes, it's in the car, it's in my pockets and other places. I have to admit, it's everywhere. But I'm an educator, so I'm actively supervising children, scanning, but I'm sitting in there with them. I'm in the trenches with them. So positioning yourself within that yard. Can you see everything? But are you also involved with everything?
I mean, how many times have you seen where in your experience, sitting down, like as soon as you sit somewhere, children would flood around you, especially if you've got something, if you are an educator they know are going to engage with them.
Yeah.
Right? If you're an educator who comes up with like these little, I don't know, resources, you've got a little special box there, they flood around you. They want to be a part of you, right? Around you. And positioning yourself and then engaging with them is so effective in
I think both you and I have used the analogy because we've known each other for a few years now.
Quite a few.
And when we first met, I used to give the analogy of the Pied Piper. I don't know if you remember that, but we had some trainees and I'd say, become the Pied Piper. The ones who sit will gather the children. But you have to sit with the children, not above the children. So I think that's a big one too, when it comes to actively supervising. We're not just sitting, we're active as we do it. And then it's that scan and account for the children. So you have to still be able to scan the room and account for where children are, especially those bigger behaviors. So if you are in the sandpit, so for instance, if I'm in the sandpit and I'm doing some role modeling on language, I'm doing the fill the bucket, bucket full, dump the bucket, those kinds of things, because that's what I'm doing. I'm role modeling my language and I've got 7 or 8 children around me, but I've got 20 more children in that space. I'm still every minute or two, I'm looking up, I'm counting, and my hope is that my team is doing the same.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because we need to know
when we were working together, and this is something that has stuck with me, and I still see it, I can still visualize it. When I would drop children off to the school, we do school runs.
Yeah, we did.
And when I walk back, I would be walking around in the kinder room, and you together with your team would be there, right? And I saw you one day, you were sitting down on one of those big colorful mats, and you had children around you, and you were reading, which you've positioned yourself to sit there. But what I saw you do that day is still something I think about up to this day. I don't know if I've ever told you, but I saw you were reading a book. Okay, let me grab like the quickest book that I can see. You're reading a book with children, and then I saw you constantly, as soon as you read a line, your head will be going just looking, and I'm like, that and that has stuck with me until now. I use that as an example. I talk about that where I learned to do that. Because then that's what I started doing, and I was still doing 10 years on. I'm still doing it,
and that's why we need a little chiropractor love sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that's exactly it. It's that scanning. Thanks, Chris. I didn't know that you were watching. Hopefully, obviously, I was doing a good job. Thank you.
You were doing the right thing, yeah.
And then the next thing is you need to be listening. And I love that. So in the video, in the presentation, I'm not going to share anything else because you have to come and watch it, people. Gotta come and watch it. But it's basically you have to listen sometimes for the quiet, because if it goes quiet, it can go deadly. it can go pear-shaped, but fast. So
Don't
you
we
have to
see
be
all those
listening.
memes?
That's right. Listening for the
Memes,
noise, but also listening for the quiet
no
moment.
noise. Yes. Absolutely.
Excuse me for that. So listening, and then it's anticipating our big behaviors. So you've got those big behaviors. If you're avoiding them, if you're not being prepared, if you don't have strategies, so really, again, it's not to keep piping the different workshops, but come to the behavior, so the one on guiding behavior,
Guiding behaviors.
because it talks a lot about that, the strategies, because until you guys get strategies and you're consistent, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with your active supervision. You won't be able to be as actively engaged with other children because you're going to be running around. You're going to be running around like a chicken. I call it doing the chicken, because my one beautiful boy, Mr. Gigi, he came up, he got busted. He was 12 classrooms, and the kindergarten teacher comes up to me and she said, he called me chicken today, Janine. I'm like, chicken? What? And she said, yeah, he was calling me a chicken. And I don't really like that. Do you know what that's about? And I said, no. But wouldn't Mr. Gigi come up that day? He always would come up and let me know his highlight of kindergarten. And I said, ooh, Gigi, did I hear you were calling so-and-so, your teacher, a chicken? Looked at me. I don't know if I can do this as well, but I'll try and do it. He looked at me and he said, well, Janine, let's face it. She went around going, Griffin, Gabrielle, stop that, and was a chicken. So it's my chicken analogy. We need to anticipate behaviors, get some strategies for those behaviors. Children innately do not want to be annoying teachers. They want a connection with teachers, a connection with educators. But we need our strategies. So you need to anticipate all those big behaviors. So that's the next part of our active supervision. And then
in saying that,
that's right.
In children's behavior, add the understanding of the dynamics of the children that you've got, isn't it?
Huge. As people will start to see a little bit more of me out there, a big fascination that I have with young children has always been about the brain, because I think that if we could understand what's going on inside the child's mind, we will have this window to so much information. But I think we also need to realize that sometimes the brain's not yet developing yet. And that's appropriate, because like we talk about in that behavior guidance workshop, is the brain is actually not supposed to be mastering these things until at least 6 years of age. That reasonable judgment, that executive function, not until their 20s. So how can we expect children to make rational, reasonable judgment calls every single moment of their day when they're in moments of frustration? Absolutely. So we need to be able to anticipate that. We need to step in. If we are actively engaging with them, we can be prepared. We're ready for it. But if you are somebody who is sitting down and then it goes pear-shaped, if you were to chart back the last 5 minutes, I would probably be able to, maybe 80% of the time, it's because somebody was not engaged.
Yes, absolutely. Those things happen because they're trying to get attention, or they need that connection, isn't it?
Yeah. And supervising, if yes, you could be standing and you're telling them and you're talking to them, remember, use the slide, but that's supervising. It's the same as managing and mentoring. Do you have someone who's managing your behaviors as a worker, or do you have somebody who's leading your practices as a mentor? Kind of the same thing in my book. Yes. And then there's that last strategy is around that engage and extend. So you need to engage with them, and you need to be extending on their interests. So be it that you have some really busy children and they're really interested in something, if you're actively engaging and you're extending on those interests. I did track work. I call it marble work, but really it was a ball. We started one day with a ball. We went from the one side of the yard, and then we had all of the children, and they were trying to make these mazes around the stairs, and the cooperation. I had almost 30 children working with me, one educator.
Wow.
I mean, I had other educators in the yard, but I was solely with this group of children, and there was a lot of negotiations that I was having to do. But because I was so involved with them, I was able to see, like you said, I was scanning. My neck hurt a little bit that day, but those things happening. And then the next day I challenged them and I did it in a different way. And the third day I gave all the pieces and I stepped back a little bit more and they ran with it. So it's that extending. So 3 days of real strong active supervision, really 3 days of really low behaviors happening because of the level of engagement of myself, my team, and the children. And it was fantastic. So active supervision, 6 key strategies there, Kristel.
It works.
It works. So does it work every time? Nah, sorry, because every day you're going to have a spanner go in. Just like
different.
Every child, every moment is going to be unique. But if you are consistent with these strategies, I would say a good 80% and higher, almost 90 at least, you'll see just some real strong active supervision. Low behaviors. You don't have to be a chicken. You can actually be enjoying the children a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Don't do the GG chicken. Thanks for having me, Kristel.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
No worries.
Once again, such a valuable input.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.